Let's go over to the tenant media and the continuation of all of this. We finally, if you will recall the details, we brought you all the news the Thursday of this massive scandal, which basically was a shell company called Tenant Media, which was run by the YouTuber and right-wing personality Lauren Chen and her husband, Liam Donovan, who allegedly, according to the Department of Justice, accepted some $10 million on behalf of the Russian government and then deceived multiple other commentators, including Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Dave Rubin, and paying them exorbitant rates for videos to then appear on the Tenant Media channel. So that's kind of the general overview of that. And again, to reiterate, those commentators were deceived according to the Department of Justice. Now, since then, multiple of them spoke out. We brought you their statements. One of them, Tim Pool, appeared on the Ben Shapiro show to answer questions about this. Let's take a listen to his explanation.
You and I disagree, I think, on some of the elements around the Ukraine war, but the idea that's been put forth by the media is that somehow you were being paid directly by Vladimir Putin in order to express those views, and that therefore anybody who disagrees with sort of the Democratic take or even the sort of moderate Republican take on this must be paid by Russia. That, of course, is an absurdity, and I think it is wrapped into a broader narrative that seems to be ramping up just in time for the election, which is that Russia's going to interfere in the election on behalf of Donald Trump.
I barely even talked to Lauren. And it's kind of crazy. I've known her for a long time. So when she said that she was launching a company, she had investors, I'm like, okay. I mean, I hear that 50 times a year. And in the podcast space, we just heard that I think Travis Kelce is getting a $100 million contract. So these numbers that's where they're at. I think people don't realize how big the podcasting space is and the revenue that you generate from sponsorships and membership. And for all I knew, this was, Lauren Chen, she works at The Blaze. She wanted to start a company. She found investors. That was seemingly the gist of it. We only ever took money from an American corporation. The amount of money that we were offered for the show was around market value for offers we had already received. We have people tweeting at me like, give the money back or whatever it is. Like, dude, let me put it this way. We're talking to our legal team. I can say that I just announced I've been contacted by the FBI as a victim of a potential victim in a crime. They have stated that I may have information relevant to their ongoing investigation and requested a voluntary interview.
Okay, all right. There's actually, we need to parse a couple of things. And that's why everybody who was saying this is an unbelievable amount. The reason it was an unbelievable amount is because it was an unbelievable amount per video, per the amount of work, and per the amount of views that it was getting. Now, I have no doubt that the Tim Pool show, even the culture war and all that, genuinely is a multi-million-dollar property if, and this is the big one, ads are being placed on it and it is getting the amount of views that it is on his channel. It's very different when you're getting some 8,000 views on another channel. You also had to look at the monetization. The monetization of Tenant Media and all that clearly did not align with the numbers that he's talking about. So, for example, on the Travis Kelce thing, 100 million. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because it's an exclusive advertising deal over a long length of time, and they own the exclusive right to place ads on that. That's why the Joe Rogan deal made sense. That's why the Call Her Daddy makes sense as well. Now, if Call Her Daddy were to retain the rights to it, and then every once in a while Alex Cooper did some shitty video for another channel and she was getting paid $100 million, that's actually a whole different story, right? And I think anybody involved, especially, I understand, people who are listening, they don't know all this. Obviously, we're deeply immersed in it because this is our livelihood. That is why folks like me, Krystal, Cenk Uygur, and others saw the numbers and were like, this is bullshit. And we knew it immediately.
It's utterly preposterous. Again, we looked up the numbers last. What is it? These videos are getting like 8,000 views on
best,
YouTube.
Actually, some of them are only getting like 1,200. Now, to be fair, Tim's show actually was doing some 100K. But again, 100K is not a lot, actually, when it comes to the 100,000. Very different. If he's monetizing directly, there's premium subscriptions and all that, sure, we could maybe get to that number annually.
Yeah, but that's not what, that's not what we're talking about. So even in the indictment, if you read the indictment, there's a part where I think it was Lauren Chen or her husband goes to, Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and Benny Johnson and it's like, okay, well, what do you need to get in order to make this worth your while? And they give their number and she goes back to the Russians and is like, I don't think this is going to work. Like, there's no way that it's worth paying this much money. And they're like, nope, we'll do it. So even in the indictment, it's like they knew that this is not economic. And then it's also, I don't know what Tim's specific interactions were with regard to this fake businessman and whatever, but he's also acting like, oh, we were just dealing with Lauren. We had no idea. Well, we know that there were Russians in the producer Discord, and we know that the source of the money was quite a bit of discussion. So I guess part of what this illustrates is, yeah, they think this kind of money floating around is no big deal because they're taking all kinds of like shady cash. There's a reason why Ben Shapiro defends him because of the amount of, shady ads he does and amount of dollars that he gets in. Like they think that's fine and good and okay, whatever, but don't call yourself independent media. Call yourself like, it's just another version of corporate media when you're willing to take money from any shady source that shows up and says, hey, I'll pay you a ridiculous rate, and you don't ask any questions, you just take the cash and do it. Okay, that's your prerogative, but don't go out and talk about the corruption of mainstream media. Don't pretend you're any frickin' different because ultimately you're not. If anything, your incentives are worse because when you're the one that's actually reading the ads, like, what a conflict of interest that is. So, yeah, we talked about the Russiagate angle. That's definitely true that the whole reason this is coming up now is because they're, like, trying to revive Russiagate and whatever. But also, this whole scheme with these two individuals using pseudonyms, inventing a fake businessman, laundering money, deceiving talent, et cetera, deceiving the audiences, too. Like, that should be illegal. It should be prosecuted. And then on a like moral level, I don't really care whether it was shady Russians or shady Ukrainians or shady random American businessman. All of it compromises your ethics and your principle if you want to hold yourself out as independent media and this like uncorruptible force.
Yeah,
so to me, that's more like, okay, I could believe you that, you didn't know it was coming. Okay, fine. But that this is the way you do business, that you'll just take these cash and you don't really care about what it is, what they want you to do, what the strings attached are. It's not independent media.
I think it's a failure of due diligence more than anything, which is, again, I put this out on Twitter, and my immediate reaction was, I said ethics and independence actually matter more whenever, ethics and integrity matter more. I mean, look, their response is pharma cash goes to big business or to corporate media, and then thus they don't, quote unquote, tell you the truth. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But if you're going to call that out, you have to hold yourself up to a higher standard.
Higher standard.
Right, to a higher standard.
They hold themselves to a lower standard.
Right, so now yeah, exactly. Like with the pharma people and all that, at least there's probably a negotiation between CNN's team and, the journalists. Like in this case, when you're an owner-operator, the way that you and I are, the way that Ben Shapiro is, the way that Tim Pool is, the way that Dave Rubin is, and all these others, you are directly, have both a financial stake and are actually negotiating the very parameters of everything that you are doing, thus setting standards like we do here, where we just say, no, we don't do any ad reads, keeps you from all companies. I mean, if you listen to the Ben Shapiro show, part of the reason that they make so much money is because they will read advertising, both for their own I actually think it's better to read for your own in-house products as opposed to like buying gold or, some sketchy security system or like some fake technology or some fake like prepper guide. Like the amount of vetting, I mean, how many times have we seen this too? I even know people, like they're like, I have this great product. You can know them, but then it will come out 5 years later. It's like, oh, the business was a bust. The quality control was bad. Putting your name and your imprimatur on something is very important. And especially whenever somebody is genuinely trying to bring you the news. So I just think it's a big problem that in general, that for the due diligence based on this, it creates very perverse incentives. And it is clear that this did not happen in a vacuum. It happened in a bigger system. And that system itself is a problem.
Yes.
So let's get to the next part, which it highlights exactly what I'm saying, because it's not about Tim Pool. It is about the incentives of what all of this looks like. And here we have a commercial break during the Tim Pool show with Ben Shapiro that you will find interesting. Let's take a listen.
It's frustrating to get entangled in whatever it is she's accused of being involved in.
Folks, our friends in Israel need our help now more than ever. If you're looking for a tangible way to support the Holy Land, you need to check out Artza Box. Artza brings the essence of Israel right to your doorstep. Every 3 months, you receive a carefully curated collection of authentic Israeli products, a treasure trove of handcrafted gifts, beautiful artwork, delicious foods, aromatic spices, and more. It's like taking a journey through the land of the Bible without even leaving your home.
Yeah.
So he's in the middle.
I probably watched that.
Oh my God.
100 times.
He's in the middle
Maybe
of giving his
200 times?
defense for like accidentally taking this money from Russians, and they break for an Israel ad.
Just saying. All right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you,
I mean,
you take that of what you will.
That's the ecosystem. But your point is spot on. That your point is absolutely spot on. And the same reason it's gross that mainstream outlets take money from pharma or from banks or whatever, and there's, a sense and probably a reality that it impacts their coverage, and those are reasonable questions to ask and problems to raise. If you're taking money from gold bugs or health supplement companies or whatever, and there's not even an illusion of an arm's length distance, you're out there shilling for it directly, that's not a conflict of interest? Like, of course it is. Of course it's reasonable for people to think that that's going to impact the way you talk about these things. So to me, this just illustrates, a much deeper problem in quote unquote independent media. And we really need a new word for it, because if you are going about your business model this way and you're just replicating and actually amplifying all of the bad incentives and conflicts of interest and corruption of mainstream media, like, you don't get to call yourself independent media, and you certainly don't get to like virtue signal and moralize about how superior you are and how much more noble and what a brave truth teller you are when you have sold out so hard for whatever random shady fake businessman happens to show up and say, here's $100,000 to do a single video that gets like 10,000 views.
Or any advertising. I mean, just like, how is that going to impact you? Just in the same way that CNN may feel uncomfortable criticizing an advertiser, I think that probably is, is probably manifested 10 times more whenever you're directly reading ads for said an industry. Like, for example, if you're reading ads for gold, what do you think your incentive is when you're talking about the Federal Reserve? Maybe I'm wrong, okay? Maybe. But I'm just saying, having worked in, larger companies and all of that, I think we've talked quite a bit about leaving the Hill, and part of the financial reasons why we did so. Ethically, it is very difficult to try and tell the truth in this business whenever you are getting major pressure from different areas where money is flowing in. And that will impact your overall coverage, your mindset, whenever it comes into it. The only way to go above that is to have a direct premium subscription program the way that we do, and to have programmatic advertising that you are not tied to. Thus, when you criticize somebody and they happen to, programmatically buy ads or something, you have no interface.
We're not even aware of what ads are running.
And if they pull out, go ahead. There's a 10 million more that YouTube or Spotify, iHeartRadio or whatever will sell to somebody else, and you have no input into that overall transaction. But yeah, it does mean you're going to make a lot less money, and so then you need to decide what you are in this to do. That's the last thing I'll say on it. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.